back from Cincinnati Typewriters, and today we're going to look at the Royal Empress. Looks a lot different than some of the older ones. For example, the Royal KMM right here. But the thing is, this is 60s, this is 40s, but on the inside of this, if you take it apart and look down inside there and start to look at the different mechanisms, you'll find out that most of it is the same. They didn't change a whole lot mechanically. They did make things a little bit flimsier on this than when they went from KMM to HHE to this, but it's still a good solid machine. Now, we start with these numbers here. I never understood this about Royal. You would think, see, if we slide this over, we've got 0, 10, 20, 30. That is not 1, 2, and 3 inches. See, if you get a ruler here and line it up, it's not even close. So 1 to 10 is less than 1 inch. And let's see, this does not measure millimeters, but I've tried it with millimeters. 1 to 10 is not a certain number of millimeters either. It's arbitrary, but they are numbers, and they do mean something because they correlate with the numbers along here, and inside there, the numbers along here. If I can get the focus to work here. So, if you'll look, the 0 here lines up with the 0 here, lines up down there with the 0. It's not easy to see because they put it on this white with red right there. So 0, 0, 0. And the point of all that is so that if you put a paper in, which I'm about to do, and you put your guide starting at 0, we get our paper in, and now if I want to put the margin at, say, the 10, I just space until I get to the 10 and set my margin. But we're not going to talk about margin yet because we're still talking about the pages and the layout and lining the paper up. So aside from moving the paper by turning this knob or turning this knob, you also advance the paper with the paper advance and carriage return lever. Now you can see it goes up, and if you can hear it, it goes up 3 lines every time I do this. That's because the line spacing setting is at 3 right here. See if I can get it to focus. If we turn that to 1, now when I use the carriage return, it only goes up 1 line. Now, there are times when, I don't know what happened to my video, but it just went off on me. So, let's see, we were talking about line spacing. The way it's set up right now, if we turn it, you can hear a click. That's 1 line. That is handy because let's say we type something and then 2 lines later, we type other things. And then we decide, oh, I made a mistake here. I want to go back and either edit it or cross it out or something like that. Well, since we're using the line spacing, we can go up 2 spaces and then we land on the letters exactly where we were. But sometimes you don't want line spacing because you're limited. You can type there. You can type there. But what if you want to type right in between there? For example, what if you're filling out some kind of form? What if you're filling out some kind of form that has lines on it? Well, there's two ways to do that. Number one, this knob here. If you press it in, you can turn it just a little bit. So now I've turned it a little bit down, and you can see if I type some letters, they're kind of halfway between the two lines. You can also more permanently use this lever here. That turns the line spacing off. Now the carriage will still advance when I do this, and it will still go 1 line, 2 line, or 3 lines, but when you turn this, there's no clicking. So you don't return to a line if you turn this anymore. You have to just kind of go by sight and hope that you get it. But generally you'd want to keep this down so that you always have the clicking, and you can always go back to the exact line you were at. There's another little lever on this side, and this is the paper release lever. So if you get your paper in and you decide it's not quite straight, this paper is straight because I always put it in straight, but let's say it's not, I can flick this lever, put this lever over, and now the paper's loose and I can go like that. Generally, you're always going to have that. You're only going to do that when a paper's out of alignment and you need to put it back into alignment. So we put that back, get my paper lined up here again, and we will go over the carriage release levers are here and here. Either one of these make it so that you can go back and forth on the carriage. Now, there's 2 more levers, one here and one here. And generally they'll be marked. Let's see if we can see that. Magic margin. I don't think it's focusing in real well. There we go. Magic margin. Magic margin right. Magic margin left. And here's how that works. I don't want the typewriter to go over any further than this. But let's say I did have a paper that came all the way over to here. I would want to set my margin so that the carriage returns all the way to here each time instead of to here. So I flick this down, I pull it toward me, and then I do the carriage release. And now wherever I stop, that's going to be the new margin setting. So if I stop here, I let go of my carriage release lever and then push my magic margin back into place. Now the margin is here. But generally you wouldn't want it there, and you don't want it necessarily at the very edge of your paper. You want it kind of a couple inches in from the edge of your paper. So you put it there, pull it down. I don't know if you could hear that little slack as it went. I'll put it back again, and maybe we'll listen for it this time. And when I do this, you'll hear a little click. That's the margin sliding over into the right spot. Now, of course, you want to do the same thing on the left side. I don't want to be printing way out here. Generally, if you're, say, typing a manuscript, they say 1 inch on each side. You could use the 0 to 10 and call that 1 inch because it's very close to 1 inch, but it's not really an inch. If you want, you can measure it. Either way, you want the margin in about that far on the right side. So I put it there. I pull that. You heard the bell and the click so that the margin slid over to here. And now that is my new margin. And if I want to change it, I can just hold this down and pull this toward me, change it to wherever I want it, let go of the magic margin, let go of that now. But I'm going to put it back here again. And now I've got a margin here and a here. So let's say I get to the end of my line. Now I've gotten to the end of my line and I was unable to finish the word the, T-H-E. All I got is T. And I forgot about the margin coming up, and I should have started on the next line, but I didn't. And it'd be really nice if I could just go ahead and finish, type in just a few more letters. That is why we have the margin release button. So if I press that, it allows me to go ahead and type in, it allows me to get past the margin without resetting the margin. I don't want to reset the whole margin just because of one mess up. So instead, I type my margin release and I go ahead and type my H, E, and now you could see I was able to get past the margin to get my the, but when I do my carriage return now, and then I come down to this, my margin is back where I wanted it. I didn't have to reset the margin, I just bypassed it, and that's what the margin release is. Now the tab setting, generally if you're using the typewriter to type a manuscript or something, then everybody knows what the tab is for. It's to indent paragraphs. So you go to your margin, do maybe 5 or 6 spaces. I need to find a different way to mount this camera. Every time I do something on the typewriter, it shakes the whole camera, but that's how it is right now, and I can't do anything about it. So I go 6 spaces and push the tab set button. Now, on the next line, so when I start a paragraph, you want to indent it, so you hit the tab button and it slides to wherever that tablet is. And if you decide I want a bigger indentation, you can see tab set here, tab clear here. So if I want to change the tab setting, I go ahead and tab until I get there. Then I hit the tab clear button. And now, if I hit tab, you'll see it goes all the way across. So I can change that to wherever I want. And the thing is, you can have as many tabs as you want. So let's say you're doing something other than making paragraph margins. You could use it to, say, make a list. So let me show you how that would work. Let's say the first thing on my list is going to be name. And then I'm going to go, see if I can do this without shaking everything. And the next thing is going to be age. But before I start typing age, I'm going to say tab set. Now I type age. And then I'll go a few more spaces and hit tab set again and do city. Now I'm going to do 2 lines to give myself a little space for my titles, and I'm going to type in Eric, tab, 35, tab, Cincinnati. And now I'm going to type my wife's name, Vicky, tab, 36, tab, Cincinnati. And now you can see that is what we use. Another way to use the tab button and another reason to use tabs. Of course, you've also got the backspace button, which does the same thing you would do on a computer. If we type some stuff and then decide, whoops, I want to go back, I'm going to hit the backspace button, and this is what will happen. I can say backspace 3 times and then hit the slash button, and that will cross those out. Now, of course, you got your shift buttons. Again, just like on a computer, shift is either, and when you do shift, you can see this whole thing goes up and down. That's what shift used to mean, because it would shift the carriage or shift the strikers. But if we shift and then do any of the letters, it just does a capital letter. And then on the numbers, we've all got symbols above them. And of course, you've got some other symbols over here. Notice there's 2 periods, 2 commas. Whether you're shift or not shift, and you press one of them, you'll get the period or the comma. It doesn't, this is not an apostrophe. This is a comma whether we hit shift or not. The apostrophe is number 8, above number 8. So shift 8 is the apostrophe. Notice what you don't have is a 1, and you don't have an exclamation point. This is how you would make a 1. You would just do L, lowercase l, no shift. And that is what your L looks like. That's also what your 1 looks like. Generally, people did not use exclamation points the way everybody does now. Some writers have described it as laughing at your own joke, but in case you want to use it, I will show you how. You press the space bar, but don't let up on the space bar. Hold the space bar, hold the shift button, and do number 8 or apostrophe. And this is what that'll look like. But notice I still have not let go of my space bar. So I haven't let go of my space bar yet, but I can let go. I don't have to, but I can let go of the shift because the other one is to do a period. So now you've got, I did space, shift 8, and then period. And that gives us our exclamation point. It's not very pretty, but that's how they used to make an exclamation point. And let's see, what else do we have on here? That's pretty much it. Everything else, oh, well, we've got our ink. We've got our ink colors, actually. So, on the right here is white. The reason it's white is because it has no color when you type. So if I put it on white and press the key, now if you watch the, you'll notice the ink ribbon does not move up and down, and so you don't get any ink on the paper. That's residue ink from pressing it before. So right there you can see, actually what's happening there is that I'm practically poking through the paper. Let's see if I can. But, so when you use the white one, it doesn't use ink. And the reason people used to do that is they would get these little whiteout slips. It'd be a little piece of paper, and it would have basically whiteout on one end of it, painted on the back, and you would slip it in there, and then switch this to white, and then you would hit it, and that would basically put a coating of whiteout on your, over your letter. So, Now, of course, we got black, and now if you see when I hit the key, the ribbon goes up and gives me a black letter. And if I go red, it goes up further and gives me a red letter. Only sometimes it gets stuck because I'm not smacking the letter hard enough. Now, you'll notice that over here, when we were hitting it without, when we were not using the ribbon, it hit the R very hard. It hit the Y hard enough to knock out a little piece of paper. Because that's actually missing paper. It's not ink, it's missing paper. You can see how it indented the paper. That's because basically your ribbon acts as a padding. So if you go hitting the paper without a color, without the ribbon, watch, I'll hit 0 a couple times, and then you'll see what happens. You can see right through the paper because it just knocked them out. That's how hard it hits it when you don't have that ribbon to soften the blow. Now, if you want to change your ink, I'm not going to show you how to do all that. Suffice it to say, you got to take the ribbon off of this and put a new one on. You have to thread it on. You have to reuse these. Don't ever throw these away. If you have a Royal and you have the spools and you think, I don't need this ink anymore because it's done and it doesn't work, I'll buy new ink, that's fine. But don't throw the spools away. You have to load it onto the spools because you need this thing on here. This is what makes, when it gets to the end of a ribbon, actually it's a good time because we happen to be at the end of our ribbon. And what will happen is you can see it's trying to wind on here, but because we're at the end, it's kind of sticking here. Now, if you watch, generally, well, this one's stuck, so it's something I need to work on, but this right here will change the direction of the ribbon. So if I put that and start going again, now you'll notice this is winding again. And if you want to see it wind faster, you could just go like this. And if I click that, it will start going again, only in the other direction. See, we're back where we were. This usually works so that as you're typing, it will unwind itself and it'll get to a point where it will start winding the opposite direction. But they do get stuck sometimes. And if they get stuck, it's not a huge deal. If you see your letters getting lighter and lighter and lighter in the past, within one line, it's because of that. Just flick that to make it go the opposite way. And now you can see it's winding correctly again. And of course, we had shift, but we also have shift lock. So if you want to type in all caps, you can do that. And when you hit shift lock, in order to get out of shift lock, you don't hit shift lock again, you hit shift. And usually doing this one won't, well, it does on this one, but a lot of typewriters, you hit shift lock, pressing that will not unlock it. You have to actually press this one on a lot of them, but not on this one. And that's all I got to say about the Royal Empress. It's a nice looking machine, and it looks plastic and light. It's not. Most of this, there is plastic in there, but most of this is aluminum. There are parts of it that are steel. It's a pretty heavy machine. It's got some weight to it. So it's not like the newer ones. I would say it's more heavy duty than the HHE. It's a lot rarer than most of the other Royals. I'd say it's rarer than the HHE. It's probably even rarer than the Royal Light. It's certainly more rare than the KMM, which this one is probably my favorite, but this would have to be my second favorite. And if you're looking for a typewriter or for typewriter pairs, keep me in mind at CincinnatiTypewriters.com.